There is something deeply human about a body doing exactly what it was built to do, and that body being told, for most of recorded history, to be silent about it. Every single month, for the majority of their lives, women bled. And for most of human history, there was no tampon waiting in a drawer, no discreet packaging in a pharmacy aisle, no words on a calendar marked with a small red dot. There was only the body, a woman's quiet knowledge of what was coming and whatever she could find to manage it. In ancient Egypt, women used soft papyrus. The papyrus plant grew in dense clusters along the Nile, and its inner pith, when softened and shaped, could serve as a basic absorbent insert. This is documented in some of the oldest medical texts ever found. But papyrus was not always available. It was not always affordable. And in many parts of the world, women improvised with what was around them: moss, animal skins, wool, rags, grass. These were not failures of civilization. They were solutions. Quiet, private, necessary solutions, worked out by women, passed between women, and almost never written down by anyone. To understand how women managed menstruation throughout history, you also have to understand how the world around them understood it. And the world, for a very long time, got it wrong in ways that were not just medically inaccurate, they were harmful. In ancient Rome, the naturalist Pliny the Elder wrote in his encyclopedic work Naturalis Historia that menstrual blood could turn wine sour, dull the edge of iron blades, cause crops to wither, and make bees abandon their hives. This was not considered superstition at the time. It was recorded as fact. It was read, copied, and cited for centuries. In medieval Europe, Christian theological tradition absorbed these ideas and layered them with moral meaning. Menstruation was tied to the concept of Eve's transgression. Women were described as unclean during their cycle, a word pulled directly from the Hebrew text of Leviticus, where menstruation is treated as a state of ritual impurity, requiring separation and purification rituals. Women in many communities were barred from entering churches while bleeding. They were not to touch holy objects. They were not to bake bread, because the bread might fail to rise. Think about what it means to be told, month after month, that your body in its most natural state makes you unfit to participate in the life around you. Not because of anything you did, but because of what you are. In Jewish law, the concept of niddah established formal rules about separation during menstruation and for 7 days after. Sexual contact was prohibited. At the end of this period, a woman immersed herself in the mikveh, a ritual bath. These practices were observed with enormous seriousness. They shaped the rhythms of domestic life, and they placed the responsibility for managing the symbolic danger of menstruation entirely on the woman's body. In many parts of South Asia, menstruating women were forbidden from entering the kitchen, touching food, or sleeping inside the family home. In some communities, they moved to a separate structure, sometimes a hut, sometimes just a corner of a yard, for the duration of their cycle. And this was not a practice of one country or one century. In parts of Nepal and India, these customs persisted well into the 21st century, sometimes with lethal consequences. Women who were exiled to outdoor structures during winter months died of cold. They were bitten by snakes. They were assaulted. They suffocated when they lit fires to stay warm in poorly ventilated spaces. The belief that menstrual blood was contaminating was not a footnote in history. It was architecture. It shaped how homes were built, how time was organized, how women moved through the world. Through most of human history and across most of the world, the primary tool for managing menstruation was the same: cloth. Folded, layered, and held in place, usually by hand-stitched bands tied around the waist or thighs, or simply tucked into undergarments. In early modern Europe and America, these were called clouts, or menstrual rags. They were made from whatever fabric was available: old linen, cotton from worn-out garments, flannel. They were washed, dried, and reused. Wealthier women had more of them and better materials. Poorer women managed with fewer pieces and rougher cloth. Washing them was its own labor, done in private, often at night, and hung to dry somewhere they would not be seen. The domestic economy of menstruation was entirely invisible to the historical record because it was managed by women and because the people who kept records did not think it worth mentioning. There is a particular intimacy to a practice this simple and this continuous. Month after month, decade after decade, the same folding of cloth, the same private tying and untying, and the same quiet walk to the wash basin. You begin to understand, looking at this, that a large portion of women's domestic labor has always existed in this invisible register. Work done, not because it was celebrated, but because it simply had to be done. In the late 19th century, something changed. The American Civil War and other large-scale military conflicts pushed medical supply companies to develop better absorbent materials for wound dressing. Nurses on the front lines, and this is documented, began using those same materials for their own menstruation. They recognized what the materials were good for. The knowledge spread informally, from woman to woman, as women's knowledge so often did. In 1888, a product called the Lister's towel was introduced by Johnson & Johnson, the first commercially produced disposable menstrual pad sold in the United States. It was made from wood pulp wadding, similar to the bandage material used in hospitals. It was a medical product, and it failed commercially at first. Not because it didn't work, but because women were too embarrassed to buy it. There was no comfortable way to ask for it at a pharmacy counter, face-to-face with a male clerk. The product sat. The culture was not ready for the conversation that buying it required. A product invented to reduce discomfort was made inaccessible by the very silence that surrounded menstruation. The engineering was ahead of the social permission to use it. The 20th century transformed menstrual product technology. And much of that transformation was driven by women, sometimes by nurses and midwives, sometimes by designers and engineers, and sometimes by ordinary women who simply decided that the available options were inadequate and set about making something better. In 1929, Dr. Earl Haas patented the first applicator tampon. He designed it with two cardboard tubes. The outer tube held the cotton, the inner tube pushed it into place. He called it Tampax, a combination of tampon and vaginal pack. He tried to sell the patent to major companies. All of them declined. Then, in 1933, a Denver businesswoman named Gertrude Tendrick bought the patent from Haas for $32,000. She hired a small team of seamstresses, began manufacturing in her home, and sold the first Tampax tampons door-to-door and by mail order. And she built the company herself. Within a decade, Tampax was a national brand. Haas conceived the design. Tendrich made it real. This is not an unusual pattern in the history of menstrual product innovation. A technical concept that would have remained theoretical, given life by a woman who understood the market because she was part of it. The menstrual cup has a similarly layered history. The first American patent for a menstrual cup was filed in 1932 by Leona Chalmers, an American actress and inventor. Her cup was made from vulcanite rubber, hard and not entirely practical, but structurally sound as a concept. She repatented an improved version in 1937. The product was sold under the name Tassaway and later Dentette. It never achieved commercial success in her lifetime, because the taboo against internal menstrual products was still powerful enough to prevent most women from even considering the option. The cup largely disappeared from the market for decades. It was rediscovered in the 1980s and 1990s by women in environmentalist communities who were looking for reusable alternatives to disposable pads and tampons. The modern silicone menstrual cup, the version sold widely today, was developed in the late 1980s and began gaining mainstream awareness only in the 2000s. A product first conceived in 1932 took 70 years to reach something close to mainstream acceptance. The technology was not the obstacle. The silence was. The same silence shaped advertising. The first American television advertisement for a menstrual product aired in 1972. For most of the 20th century, menstrual product ads ran exclusively in women's magazines. Never on the radio, never in mixed company. The language was almost comically oblique. Freshness, confidence, protection, those days. The word menstruation was not used in television advertising until 1985, when a Tampax commercial, quietly historic, spoke the word plainly for the first time. The story of menstruation is, in many ways, a story about what societies choose to see and what they choose to look away from. For most of recorded history, something that happened to half the population, every month, for 30 or 40 years of a life, was treated as a private burden to be managed in silence. Women developed technologies: papyrus inserts in ancient Egypt, folded linen in medieval Europe, washable cloth pads in early modern homes, the tampon, or the cup. Not because they were waiting for science to catch up, but because necessity does not wait for cultural permission. The inventions came from women who needed them. The commercial products that succeeded were built and sold by women who understood the market because they lived it. What has changed is the conversation. In recent decades, the language surrounding menstruation has shifted in ways that would have been unimaginable to Gertrude Tendrick, selling tampons door to door, or to Leona Chalmers, filing her patent in 1932. Menstrual equity has become a policy issue, with activists and legislators in dozens of countries arguing that period products should be freely available in schools, prisons, and public facilities. Scotland became the first country in the world to make period products universally free when under legislation passed in 2020. The language on packaging has changed. The advertising has changed. The word itself, menstruation, no longer requires a hushed voice. And yet, the stigma has not disappeared. In many countries, girls still miss school because they cannot afford or access menstrual products. Women in conflict zones manage their cycles with whatever they can find. The same improvisations their ancestors used thousands of years ago, not by choice, but by necessity. In certain communities, the rituals of shame and separation persist. The silence has thinned in some places and barely moved in others. Every era inherits the silences of the one before it. What changes is how many people decide they are done being quiet. There is a thread that runs from the woman in ancient Egypt pressing soft papyrus into place, into the medieval woman washing her clouts before dawn, to Gertrude Tendrich packing Tampax boxes in Denver, to the teenager today who types period into a search bar without a second thought. The biology was always the same. The technology kept improving. What changed, slowly, incompletely, with great resistance, was the world's willingness to acknowledge it. A body doing exactly what it was built to do deserves, at minimum, the dignity of being named. Tell us where to go next. If there is a place, a time, or a woman in history whose daily life you want to see reconstructed, a medieval market woman, an Edo period artisan, a factory worker in 1910, leave a comment. History is made of ordinary days, and those days deserve to be told.